r/pettyrevenge grandma called me the dumb one, so I ruined her golden child. You know, maybe if you applied yourself like your cousin does, you wouldn't be such a disappointment. Grandma Rose's words hit me like a slap across the face, delivered with that sickeningly sweet smile she always wore when she was about to demolish my self-worth. The entire family gathering went dead silent. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even my parents just stared at their plates like the mashed potatoes had suddenly become fascinating. I was 17 and had just told everyone about making honor roll for the third semester in a row. But apparently, that meant nothing compared to golden boy Marcus getting accepted to Princeton. I mean, really, she continued, dabbing at her lips with a napkin like she hadn't just verbally eviscerated me. Marcus has a 4.8 GPA, he's student body president, captain of the debate team, and he volunteers at the children's hospital every weekend. What do you do? Play video games. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but he didn't defend me. He never did. Just sat there soaking up the praise like a sponge while I got treated like the family screw-up. Actually, Grandma, I've been working part-time at. Oh, a job. How practical. The way she said it made practical sound like a disease. Marcus doesn't need a job because he's focused on his future. He's going places. Real places. My mom finally spoke up. Mom, that's not fair. Both kids are doing well in their own ways. Grandma Rose waved her off dismissively. Don't coddle her, Linda. Someone needs to tell her the truth. Look at Marcus, acceptance letters from 3 Ivy League schools, scholarship offers, internship opportunities already lined up for next summer. And then look at. She gestured vaguely in my direction like I was a piece of furniture she was considering throwing out. The thing about being called the dumb one your entire life is that people start believing it. Including you. I'd spent years watching Marcus get showered with praise, money for achievements, and endless attention while I got lectured about not measuring up to his impossible standards. But here's what nobody knew about perfect Marcus. I'd seen him exactly 1 week ago, crying in his car outside our school at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Not the dignified, single-tear kind of crying you see in movies. The ugly, snot-running, hyperventilating kind that makes you wonder if someone should call for help. I'd been walking home from closing shift at the grocery store when I spotted his car. At first, I thought about just walking past. Marcus and I weren't exactly close despite being cousins. But something about the way he was hunched over the steering wheel made me knock on his window. What he told me that night would have made Grandma Rose's perfect little world crumble into dust. But I didn't say anything. Not that night at dinner, not when she compared his bright future to my complete lack of direction for the 100th time. I just sat there, taking it like I always did, while Marcus avoided eye contact and pushed food around on his plate. Maybe you should be more like your cousin, Grandma Rose concluded, reaching over to pat Marcus's hand. He's going to make something of himself. He's going to make this family proud. I looked at Marcus then, really looked at him. The dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands shook slightly when he reached for his water glass, the forced smile that never quite reached his eyes anymore. Yeah, Grandma. Marcus was definitely going to make the family proud. If only she knew the truth. The next morning, I couldn't get the image of Marcus's breakdown out of my head. I kept replaying Grandma Rose's words too, the dumb one echoing like a broken record while I got ready for school. My reflection stared back at me from the bathroom mirror, and for a split second, I could see what she saw. Average grades, honor roll apparently didn't count, messy hair, dark circles from working late shifts, clothes from Target instead of whatever expensive brands Marcus wore. But I also knew something she didn't. At lunch, I found myself scanning the cafeteria for Marcus. We went to the same school but moved in completely different circles, him with the student government kids and AP overachievers, me with the part-time workers and kids who actually had to try for their grades. I spotted him at his usual table, surrounded by his crew, but something was off. He was just sitting there while conversations flowed around him, staring at his untouched sandwich. Earth to space cadet, my friend Jess said, snapping her fingers in front of my face. You're being weird. Weirder than usual, I mean. Just thinking about family stuff. Ah, the grandmother who thinks you're destined for a life of mediocrity? Jess had heard plenty of my Grandma Rose horror stories over the years. What did she do this time? I started to tell her, but stopped. Something held me back from sharing what I knew about Marcus. Maybe it was family loyalty, or maybe I wasn't ready to weaponize that information yet. Instead, I just shrugged. Same old stuff. But as the week went on, things got worse. Grandma Rose started calling more often. Not to check on me, never to check on me, but to talk to my parents about Marcus's latest achievements. I'd hear Mom's strained voice drifting from the kitchen. Yes, Mom, that's wonderful news about his scholarship interview. No, Mom, she's doing fine too. Yes, I'll tell her you said that. Then came the Facebook posts. Grandma Rose had discovered social media late in life, but she'd embraced it with the enthusiasm of a convert. My feed became a steady stream of Marcus worship, so proud of my grandson Marcus for his leadership award, with 17 heart emojis. Marcus volunteering again this weekend, where did we get so lucky? Can't wait for Marcus's graduation, Princeton here he comes. Not a single mention of my honor roll. Not one word about the Employee of the Month award I'd gotten at work. Nothing. The comments on her posts were even worse. Family friends and distant relatives chiming in with, you must be so proud, and what an accomplished young man. A few brave souls would ask, how's your other granddaughter doing, and Grandma Rose would respond with vague pleasantries that basically amounted to, she exists. But it was Wednesday night that really pushed me over the edge. I was working my shift at Morrison's Grocery when I overheard 2 older women talking in the cereal aisle. I recognized one voice immediately, Mrs. Peterson from down the street, who'd known my family for years. Rose was telling me about her grandson at book club. The one going to Princeton. She's just beside herself with pride. Says he's everything she could have hoped for in a grandchild. Oh, how wonderful. And what about the other one? There was a pause. Well, Rose says she's finding her way. You know how some kids are just born to succeed and others need more time to figure things out. She's hoping the girl will maybe follow her cousin's example. I stood there frozen behind a display of soup cans, my face burning with humiliation. She was talking about me like I was some kind of charity case at her book club. Poor, dim little granddaughter who might someday stumble into something resembling success if she tried really, really hard to copy her brilliant cousin. That night, I made a decision. It was time Grandma Rose learned the truth about her precious golden boy. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Friday afternoon, I was restocking the produce section when I heard familiar voices near the store entrance. Marcus was there with his girlfriend Stephanie, and they were clearly in the middle of an argument. "Can't keep doing this, Marcus. The lies are getting out of control," Stephanie was saying, her voice hushed but urgent. "It's just until graduation. After that, I'll figure something out," Marcus replied, running his hands through his hair, the same gesture I'd seen him do in his car that night. I ducked behind the Apple display, my heart pounding. This was it. This was my chance to get the full story. "Figure what out?" "You've been figuring it out for months. Your family thinks you're going to Princeton in the fall. Your grandmother keeps posting about it on Facebook. What happens when September comes and you're not there?" My stomach dropped. Not going to Princeton. But the acceptance letter, the scholarship interviews Grandma Rose kept bragging about. I know, okay. I know it's messed up. But you didn't see her face when I told her about getting in. She was so proud, Steph. For once in my life, I was exactly what she wanted me to be. I couldn't just. "So you lied about getting accepted to Princeton to make your grandmother happy?" Stephanie's voice was getting louder, and Marcus frantically gestured for her to keep it down. It started small. She asked about my applications, and I panicked. I'd already gotten rejected from 3 schools, my SAT scores were way lower than what I told everyone, and she just looked so hopeful. So I said Princeton had called, and before I knew it, the whole family thought I was some kind of genius. I pressed myself closer to the Apple display, hardly daring to breathe. This was so much worse than I'd imagined. "And the volunteer work at the children's hospital?" Stephanie pressed. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I went twice. Maybe 3 times. But Grandma Rose kept bringing it up to people, talking about how dedicated I was, and I just couldn't disappoint her." "What about student body president?" "The debate team. I lost the election to Sarah Chin. And I quit debate team sophomore year because I couldn't handle the pressure. But every time I tried to tell the truth, Grandma would bring me up as this perfect example to my cousin, and I just felt so guilty. She'd get this look on her face when she talked about me, like I was proof that our family was special or something. My cousin. He was talking about me. All those times Grandma Rose had used Marcus as a weapon against my self-esteem, Marcus had been living a complete lie. This is insane, Marcus. You realize this is going to come out eventually, right? What about graduation? Your parents think you're giving the valedictorian speech." "I'm not valedictorian," Marcus whispered, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "I'm barely graduating. My GPA is 2.8, not 4.8. I've been photoshopping my report cards for 2 years. The pieces were falling into place now." The crying in the car, the shaking hands, the way he'd been pushing food around at dinner, Marcus was having a complete breakdown trying to maintain this impossible facade. Part of me felt sorry for him. But a bigger part of me was thinking about every time Grandma Rose had made me feel worthless, every comparison, every disappointed look when I wasn't living up to Marcus's fake achievements. "You have to tell them," Stephanie said firmly. "This whole thing is going to explode in your face, and it's going to be so much worse than if you just came clean now." "I can't. You don't understand what it's like being the family disappointment. Ask my cousin, she knows. Family disappointment." The irony was almost too perfect. I waited until they left, my mind racing with possibilities. I had everything now. The whole truth about perfect Marcus and his carefully constructed lies. The question was, what exactly was I going to do with it? That weekend, I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I tried to do homework or watch TV, my brain kept circling back to what I'd overheard. Marcus wasn't just lying about one thing, his entire identity was fake. The cousin I'd spent years feeling inferior to didn't even exist. But knowing the truth and figuring out what to do with it were 2 completely different problems. Sunday dinner at Grandma Rose's was torture. She'd outdone herself this time, making Marcus his favorite meal and spending the entire time gushing about his upcoming Princeton orientation packet that had supposedly arrived in the mail. "Tell everyone about the dormitory you're going to be in, sweetheart," she cooed, practically glowing with pride. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. Actually, they said room assignments don't come out until later in the summer." "Oh, of course. They probably want to match you with someone equally accomplished." Imagine, my grandson rubbing shoulders with future presidents and Nobel Prize winners. I watched Marcus push his pot roast around his plate, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then Grandma Rose turned her attention to me. "And what about you, dear? Any plans for after graduation next year, or are we still figuring it out?" The air quotes she made with her fingers felt like tiny daggers. "I've actually been looking into the community college's nursing program," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My grades are good enough, and with my work experience." "Nursing," she interrupted with a patronizing smile. "Well, that's practical. Not everyone can be destined for greatness like Marcus. Someone has to do the regular jobs, I suppose." The table went quiet again. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably while Mom shot Grandma Rose a warning look that was completely ignored. Marcus finally looked up from his plate, and for a split second, I thought he might actually say something. Defend me, or at least acknowledge that I had goals too. Instead, he just mumbled, "The nursing program at the community college is supposed to be really good." Supposed to be really good. Like he was throwing me a bone. That's when I realized I wasn't feeling sorry for Marcus anymore. "Thanks for the ringing endorsement," I said, standing up abruptly. "May I be excused?" "Of course, sweetheart," Mom said quickly. "Why don't you help me clear the table?" As I stacked plates in the kitchen, I could hear Grandma Rose's voice drifting from the dining room. "I just worry about her, you know. She seems so directionless. Thank goodness Marcus is setting such a good example for the family." "Setting a good example. With his fake grades, fake achievements, and fake acceptance to Princeton. I was loading the dishwasher when Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking even more miserable than usual. "Hey," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" My heart started pounding. Did he know I'd overheard him at the store? About what? About everything. I know Grandma Rose can be harsh sometimes, and I should probably stick up for you more. He ran his hands through his hair again. "Things are really complicated right now." "Complicated how?" He glanced over his shoulder to make sure we were alone, then stepped closer. "Can you keep a secret? Like, a really important secret?" This was it. He was going to confess everything. Maybe ask for my help covering for him, or beg me not to tell the family the truth. I could already see how this would play out. Marcus would throw himself on my mercy, I'd agree to keep his secrets, and everything would go back to the way it was. Grandma Rose would keep treating me like a family screw-up while praising her precious golden boy, and I'd be complicit in the whole charade. "Sure," I heard myself say. "What kind of secret?" But before Marcus could answer, Grandma Rose's voice rang out from the dining room. "Marcus. Come back in here, sweetheart. Your Uncle Dave wants to hear about your internship plans." Marcus's face went pale. I have to go. "We'll talk later, okay?" He practically ran back to the dining room, leaving me standing there with a dozen questions and a growing sense that this whole situation was about to spiral completely out of control. As I finished loading the dishwasher, I could hear Marcus stumbling through another lie about summer internship opportunities that probably didn't exist. Each fabrication made Grandma Rose more proud and made me more invisible. But not for much longer. I was done being the family disappointment, especially when a family success story was built on nothing but lies. The next week at school, I couldn't stop watching Marcus. It was like seeing him with completely new eyes. Every interaction, every conversation took on a different meaning now that I knew the truth. During lunch, I saw him frantically talking to his guidance counselor outside the main office. Mrs. Henderson looked concerned, gesturing with a manila folder while Marcus shook his head repeatedly. When he walked away, his shoulders were slumped in defeat, and I caught a glimpse of his expression, pure panic. "You're doing that creepy staring thing again," Jess said, following my gaze across the hallway. "Seriously, what's going on with you and your cousin? You've been obsessed with him lately." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Grandma wants to throw Marcus a graduation party. She's asking all the relatives to contribute money for a Princeton send-off celebration. Can you work extra shifts to help chip in?" My stomach twisted. A graduation party. Where the whole extended family would come to celebrate Marcus's fake achievements and non-existent future at Princeton. Where Grandma Rose would inevitably use the opportunity to remind everyone how perfect Marcus was and how disappointing I was by comparison. And now she wanted me to pay for the privilege of being humiliated. "Everything okay?" Jess asked, reading my expression. "You look like someone just told you Christmas was cancelled." "Family stuff," I muttered, shoving my phone back in my pocket. "My grandmother wants to throw my cousin this huge party for graduating and getting into Princeton." "That's nice, I guess. You don't sound thrilled about it." I almost told her then. The words were right there. Marcus isn't going to Princeton. He's been lying about everything. The whole Golden Boy act is complete bullshit. But something held me back. Maybe because once I said it out loud to someone else, there'd be no taking it back. The secret would be real. "Just tired of hearing about how amazing he is," I said instead. That afternoon, I got called in for an extra shift at Morrison's. The store was unusually busy for a Wednesday, and I was restocking the pharmacy section when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. "Saw Rose at the bank this morning," one customer was saying to another. She was asking about getting a loan against her house. Said it was for her grandson's education expenses. "Oh, the one going to Princeton. She must be so proud. Apparently the financial aid package isn't covering everything. She mentioned something about needing $20,000 for his first year expenses. Can you imagine? At her age, taking out a loan like that?" I dropped the bottle of vitamins I was holding. $20,000. Grandma Rose was going into debt to fund Marcus's fake Princeton education. Money she probably couldn't afford to lose, for a school he wasn't even attending. This wasn't just about family dynamics anymore. This wasn't just about hurt feelings and unfair comparisons. Marcus's lies were about to cost our grandmother her financial security. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Every scenario I played out ended in disaster. If I exposed Marcus now, Grandma Rose would be devastated and probably broke. If I didn't expose him, she'd lose $20,000 anyway when the truth inevitably came out. But there was something else eating at me too. A darker thought that I didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't shake. This was my chance. My chance to show Grandma Rose exactly what her precious golden boy was really like. My chance to prove that maybe, just maybe, the granddaughter she'd written off wasn't a family disappointment after all. I rolled over and grabbed my phone, scrolling through Grandma Rose's recent Facebook posts about Marcus. 17 likes on his latest achievement. Comments from family members about how lucky she was to have such an accomplished grandson. My finger hovered over the screen. One comment. That's all it would take to start unraveling everything. But not yet. Not like this. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. The graduation party planning kicked into high gear the following week, and it was like watching a slow-motion train wreck that I was powerless to stop. Grandma Rose had enlisted my mom as her co-conspirator, and suddenly our house became party planning central. Every surface was covered with lists, phone numbers, and price quotes for catering companies that made my part-time grocery store salary look like pocket change. "She wants to rent the community center," Mom said, pacing around our kitchen with her phone pressed to her ear. "The big hall that holds 200 people. Yes, Mom, I understand you want this to be special, but maybe we could look at smaller venues." 200 people. For Marcus's fake graduation celebration. I was doing homework at the kitchen table, trying to focus on calculus while listening to my mom get steamrolled by Grandma Rose's increasingly elaborate plans. Apparently, fake Princeton acceptances required real celebrations with real money. A live band? Mom's voice pitched higher. Mom, that seems like, okay, yes, I'll get quotes from local musicians. When she finally hung up, Mom slumped into the chair across from me, looking exhausted. Your grandmother has officially lost her mind. She wants custom invitations, a professional photographer, and a 3-tier cake shaped like Princeton's logo. How much is all this going to cost? I asked, though I was pretty sure I didn't want to know the answer. More than we can afford. Way more than your cousin's graduation party should cost. But try telling your grandmother that. Mom rubbed her temples. She keeps saying it's a once-in-a-lifetime achievement that deserves a once-in-a-lifetime celebration. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Can you meet me after school tomorrow? Really need to talk to you about something important. I stared at the message, my heart racing. This was it. He was either going to confess everything and beg for my help, or he was going to try to drag me deeper into his web of lies. Either way, I was finally going to get answers. The next afternoon, I found Marcus waiting by his car in the school parking lot. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them, hands shaking as he unlocked his car door. Get in, he said quietly. We need to go somewhere private. He drove us to the old playground behind the elementary school where we used to play when we were kids. It was deserted now, just rusty swings swaying in the breeze and our footsteps echoing on the empty basketball court. I'm completely screwed, Marcus said without preamble, slumping onto one of the picnic tables. Like, completely and totally screwed, and I don't know what to do. I sat across from him, trying to look surprised. What's going on? Promise me you won't tell anyone what I'm about to say. Promise me. I promise. He took a shuddering breath. I didn't get into Princeton. I didn't get into any of the schools I told everyone about. My real GPA is 2.8, I barely passed half my classes this year, and I'm probably not even going to graduate. Even though I knew it was coming, hearing him say it out loud still felt like a punch to the gut. Marcus, what the hell? It started small. Grandma asked about my applications, and I panicked. You know how she gets about school and achievements and making the family proud. I couldn't stand the thought of disappointing her, so I lied. And then the lie got bigger, and now. He gestured helplessly. Now she's planning this massive party and asking relatives for money, and I heard she might be taking out a loan against her house. She's what? $20,000. For my fake Princeton expenses. Marcus put his head in his hands. I've ruined everything. I've completely ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it. I stared at him, this broken version of the cousin I'd spent my whole life being compared to. Part of me felt genuine sympathy, he looked miserable and terrified. But a bigger part of me was thinking about every cruel comparison, every dismissive comment, every time I'd been made to feel worthless while he soaked up praise for achievements that didn't exist. You have to tell her the truth, I said finally. I can't. It'll kill her. And when the whole family finds out. He looked up at me with desperate eyes. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I need your help. Here it was. The moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. What kind of help? Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I need you to help me disappear. Disappear? I stared at Marcus like he'd just suggested we rob a bank. What do you mean, disappear? He was pacing now, his hands gesturing wildly as the words tumbled out. I mean leave. Just, go. Before graduation, before the party, before anyone figures out the truth. I could say I got an early admission opportunity, or some kind of special program that starts immediately. Buy myself time to figure out what to do next. Marcus, that's insane. You can't just vanish. Why not? It's better than facing everyone when this all comes crashing down. At least this way, Grandma Rose gets to keep believing in her perfect grandson. She never has to know how badly I screwed up. I watched him spiral, feeling like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, this was about watching my cousin completely fall apart, and he wanted me to be his accomplice. Where would you even go? I asked, morbidly curious about just how far he'd thought this through. I have some money saved up. I could get a bus ticket to another state, find some kind of job, start over completely. People do it all the time. People in movies do it all the time. Real people have social security numbers and families who report them missing in. Just for a few months. Marcus interrupted desperately. Just long enough for me to figure out a real plan. Maybe I could actually get into a community college somewhere else, or find a way to fix my grades, or... He trailed off, probably realizing how impossible it all sounded. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the creak of the old swing set. Marcus was looking at me like I was his last lifeline, and I suddenly understood why he'd chosen me for this conversation. Not because we were close, we'd never been close. But because I was the family disappointment. The one who supposedly had nothing to lose. Why me? I asked. Why are you telling me this instead of your parents, or Stephanie, or literally anyone else? Marcus sat back down heavily, avoiding my eyes. Because you're the only one who might actually understand what it's like to disappoint Grandma Rose. And because... He paused, looking genuinely ashamed. Because you're the one person who might actually be better off if I wasn't around to be compared to anymore. There it was. The admission that all those comparisons, all those times he'd sat silently while Grandma Rose used him as a weapon against my self-esteem, hadn't been accidental. He'd known exactly what was happening, and he'd let it continue because it benefited him. So your plan is to run away and let me deal with the fallout, I said slowly. Let me be the one to watch Grandma Rose realize she's been lied to. Let me be there when she finds out she borrowed $20,000 for nothing. I didn't think about it like that. Of course you didn't. You never think about anyone but yourself. Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. I never asked for any of this pressure. I never asked to be the golden child. But you sure enjoyed it while it lasted. We stared at each other across the picnic table, years of unspoken resentment suddenly hanging in the air between us. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but what could he say? We both knew I was right. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. Grandma Rose wants to meet with you this weekend to discuss your presentation at Marcus's party. She has some ideas about how you can honor your cousin's achievements. Please be nice. A presentation. About Marcus's fake achievements. At a party funded by money our grandmother couldn't afford to lose. I looked up at Marcus, who was watching me with desperate hope in his eyes, waiting for me to agree to help him run away from the mess he created. I'll think about it, I lied. The weekend meeting with Grandma Rose was even worse than I'd anticipated. She'd invited me over for tea, actual china cups and everything, like this was some kind of formal business meeting. Which, in her mind, it probably was. I've been thinking about your role in Marcus's celebration, she said, pouring tea with the precision of a surgeon. Since you're not quite the academic star your cousin is, I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity for you to contribute something meaningful to the family. I gripped my teacup handle so hard I was surprised it didn't snap. What did you have in mind? A speech. About how Marcus has inspired you to try harder in school. About what it means to have such an accomplished role model in the family. Her eyes lit up like she'd just solved world hunger. It would be so touching, the struggling student paying tribute to the successful one. Very heartwarming. The struggling student. Not even granddaughter, or family member, or person with actual feelings. Just the struggling student, whose only purpose was to make Marcus look even better by comparison. Grandma, I don't really think. Oh, and I've already spoken to your mother about your outfit for the party. We'll need to find you something appropriate. Nothing too flashy, we don't want you drawing attention away from the guest of honor. She smiled that razor-sharp smile that somehow managed to be condescending and sweet at the same time. Maybe something in navy blue. Very understated. I sat there, listening to her plan out my role as the supporting character in Marcus's fictional success story, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This was about being erased entirely, reduced to nothing more than a prop in someone else's lie. How long should the speech be? I heard myself ask. Oh, 5 minutes should be plenty. Just enough to really emphasize how proud the whole family is of Marcus. I'll help you write it, of course, we want to make sure it strikes the right tone. Of course she'd write it herself. Couldn't trust the dumb granddaughter to find the right words to praise the family genius. When I got home, I found Marcus waiting on our front porch, looking like he hadn't slept in days. The desperation in his eyes had only gotten worse since our conversation at the playground. Did you think about what I said? He asked the moment he saw me. About helping me leave? Marcus, you can't seriously think running away is the answer. What else am I supposed to do? The graduation ceremony is next week. The party is the weekend after. Grandma Rose is inviting 200 people to celebrate my acceptance to a school I'm not attending. His voice cracked on the last words. I heard her on the phone with her sister yesterday, bragging about how I'm going to be the first person in our family to go to an Ivy League school. The first person in our family. Like that was some kind of sacred honor that would be forever tainted when the truth came out. There's something else, Marcus continued, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. I got this today. He showed me an email from his school's administration office. The subject line made my stomach drop, final grade review, immediate response required. They want to meet with me and my parents on Monday, Marcus said quietly. About my attendance issues and failing grades in 3 core classes. There's a chance I might not graduate at all. Not graduate. After everything, the lies about Princeton, the fake achievements, the elaborate party planning, Marcus might not even have a high school diploma. My parents think the meeting is about graduation honors, he whispered. They have no idea. I stared at him, realizing that the situation was so much worse than I'd imagined. This wasn't just going to be an embarrassing revelation at a family party. This was going to destroy everything, Grandma Rose's pride, my parents' trust, the entire family's faith in the person they'd held up as their shining example. And Marcus wanted me to help him run away before it all came crashing down. Please, he said, grabbing my arm. I'm begging you. Help me disappear before Monday. It's the only way to keep this from destroying everyone. I looked into his desperate eyes and realized I was holding all the cards now. The question was, what was I going to do with them? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's panicked face, heard Grandma Rose planning my humiliating speech, thought about that $20,000 loan she was taking out. The whole situation was spiraling completely out of control, and somehow I'd become the only person who knew the full scope of the disaster heading our way. Around 2 a.m., my phone lit up with a series of texts from Marcus. Can't stop thinking about Monday's meeting. Parents are so excited about graduation. Mom bought a new dress for the ceremony. I'm going to destroy them. Please help me. I stared at the messages, feeling the weight of his desperation through the screen. Part of me, the part that remembered being 8 years old and having Marcus stick up for me when older kids were picking on me at a family reunion, wanted to help him. But the bigger part, the part that had endured years of being called the dumb one while he soaked up praise for lies, felt something else entirely. He'd made this mess. Why should I be the one to clean it up? Sunday morning brought a new crisis. I was getting ready for another shift at Morrison's when Mom burst into my room, her face pale and her hands shaking slightly. Your grandmother just called, she said, sinking onto my bed. She wants to move the graduation party up. Move it up. Why? Apparently Marcus told her he might have to leave for Princeton earlier than expected. Some kind of pre-orientation opportunity that just came up. Mom made air quotes, but she looked confused rather than suspicious. Rose is beside herself trying to reorganize everything. The caterer, the venue, the photographer, she's trying to move a party for 200 people up by a full week. My stomach dropped. Marcus was actually doing it. He was setting up his escape plan, and now Grandma Rose was scrambling to accommodate his lies, spending even more money she didn't have. When's the new date? I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew. This Friday. The day after graduation. Mom rubbed her temples. She's called in favors with half the town to make this work. Mrs. Peterson is driving 3 hours to pick up the custom cake early, your Uncle Dave is taking time off work he can't afford, and your Aunt Carol is flying in from Denver instead of driving because of the short notice. This Friday. 3 days away. 3 days before Marcus's meeting with his parents and the school administration. He'd figured out the exact window he needed to vanish before everything collapsed. Mom, what if I started, then stopped? What if what? What if Marcus was lying about everything? What if the golden boy wasn't so golden? How could I even begin to explain without sounding like I was making it up out of jealousy? What if what, honey? Nothing. Just, what if the party doesn't go as planned? Mom looked at me strangely. Why wouldn't it? Marcus deserves this celebration. Your grandmother has waited her whole life to have a grandchild achieve something this significant. She paused, then added more gently, I know it's hard sometimes, being compared to Marcus. But try to be happy for him, okay? And for your grandmother. This means everything to her. After Mom left, I sat on my bed, staring at my phone. I had Marcus's entire future in my hands, along with Grandma Rose's financial security and the family's faith in their perfect golden boy. Every option felt impossible. If I helped Marcus disappear, I'd be complicit in a lie that would eventually destroy Grandma Rose anyway, just from a distance where Marcus wouldn't have to face the consequences. If I exposed him now, I'd be the one to shatter our grandmother's heart and watch our family implode. But there was a third option forming in my mind. Something that would give Marcus exactly what he'd always gotten, a spotlight and an audience, just not the kind he was expecting. Friday's party was going to be very educational for everyone involved. Monday arrived like a death sentence, and I spent the entire day at school watching Marcus from a distance. He moved through the hallways like a ghost, pale, jumpy, checking his phone obsessively. During lunch, I saw him slip out the back exit near the gym, probably skipping his afternoon classes entirely. The meeting with his parents and the administration was scheduled for 3 p.m. I knew because I'd overheard my mom on the phone with Aunt Sarah, Marcus's mother, that morning. Oh, how exciting that they want to meet about graduation honors, Mom had said. You must be so proud. Rose is practically floating on air about the whole thing. Graduation honors. My aunt had no idea she was walking into an ambush. At 3:15, my phone started buzzing with frantic texts from Marcus. It's over. They know everything. Parents are devastated. Meeting with principal tomorrow about whether I can even graduate. Grandma doesn't know yet, but she will soon. I'm leaving tonight. Don't try to stop me. I stared at the messages, my heart pounding. He was really going to do it, disappear into thin air and leave everyone else to pick up the pieces. Leave me to watch Grandma Rose's world crumble when she realized her perfect grandson was a fraud. But Tuesday brought an even worse development. I was stocking shelves at Morrison's when I overheard Mrs. Chen from the bank talking to her husband near the checkout lanes. That poor Rose Williams, she was saying, shaking her head. Came in this morning to finalize that home equity loan. $25,000 now, apparently the party costs went up with all the last-minute changes. She was so excited, talking about how this was the proudest moment of her life. $25,000. The amount had gone up because of the rushed party planning, and Grandma Rose had no idea she was borrowing money to celebrate a lie. When does the loan go through? Mr. Chen asked. Thursday morning. She'll have the money just in time for all the final party payments on Friday. Thursday morning. 2 days before the party. 2 days before Marcus planned to vanish and leave our grandmother financially ruined and emotionally destroyed. I abandoned my cart of merchandise and went straight to the employee bathroom, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. Marcus hadn't responded to any text since Monday night, but I had to try one more time. The loan goes through Thursday. $25,000. You have to stop this before then. No response. Marcus, she's going to lose her house. Nothing. If you disappear now, you're not just running from your problems. You're destroying her life. Still nothing. That evening, I drove by Marcus's house. His car wasn't in the driveway, and when I called his number, it went straight to voicemail. Either his phone was dead, or he'd already left. Wednesday morning confirmed my worst fears. Aunt Sarah called my mom, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. Marcus is gone, Mom said after hanging up, her face white with shock. He left a note saying he got some kind of emergency early admission opportunity at Princeton. Packed a bag and disappeared in the middle of the night. What kind of opportunity? I asked, though I already knew it was another lie. Something about a special program for incoming students. He said he'd call when he got settled, but Sarah tried the Princeton admissions office and they have no idea what she's talking about. Mom sank into a kitchen chair, looking dazed. The timing is so strange, right before graduation. And why wouldn't he tell anyone about this opportunity beforehand? Because it didn't exist. Because Marcus had crafted one final lie to cover his escape, and now our entire family was scrambling to make sense of something that made no sense at all. What about the party? I asked. Mom's expression crumpled. Your grandmother refuses to cancel it. She says Marcus will be back in time, that this is just some miscommunication. She's convinced Princeton flew him out for some kind of orientation and he'll return for his celebration. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. But what if he doesn't come back? What if something's really wrong? What if, indeed? Thursday morning, Grandma Rose's loan went through right on schedule. Thursday afternoon, I was restocking the pharmacy section when I saw her walk through Morrison's automatic doors, Grandma Rose, moving with the determined stride of a woman on a mission. She had her oversized purse clutched against her chest and that particular smile she wore when she was feeling victorious about something. I ducked behind the vitamin display, watching as she made her way to the customer service counter. Even from across the store, I could see the thick envelope in her hands, probably the cashier's check from her loan, ready to pay for Marcus's elaborate fake celebration. Excuse me, I heard her say to Janet at customer service, her voice carrying that musical quality it always had when she was particularly pleased with herself. I need to purchase several gift cards for the catering company. It's for my grandson's graduation party, the one going to Princeton. Of course she was buying gift cards. Probably thousands of dollars worth, money she'd borrowed against her house to celebrate a grandson who was currently hiding somewhere with a dead phone and a bag full of lies. I watched Janet smile politely and start processing the transaction, completely unaware that she was helping an elderly woman spend money she couldn't afford on a party for achievements that didn't exist. The whole scene felt surreal, so normal on the surface, but built on this foundation of deception that was about to crumble. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Marcus called Aunt Sarah. He's okay but can't make it back for the party. Something about mandatory Princeton orientation. Rose is devastated but still insists on having the celebration, in his honor. This is getting out of hand. Can't make it back. Marcus's exit strategy was working perfectly. He'd vanish completely while our family spent $25,000 celebrating his fictional achievements, and by the time anyone figured out the truth, he'd be long gone. But as I watched Grandma Rose carefully counting out gift cards worth more money than I made in 6 months, something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about family dynamics or hurt feelings anymore. This was about watching Marcus financially destroy the one person who believed in him most, then disappearing so he wouldn't have to face the consequences. I abandoned my cart and walked over to the customer service counter, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Hi, Grandma Rose," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. She looked up, clearly surprised to see me. "Oh, hello dear. I didn't know you were working today." Her tone was polite but distant, the same way she'd talk to any random family acquaintance. "Just finishing up my shift. I heard about Marcus having to stay at Princeton. That must be disappointing." "Disappointing?" Her eyes flashed. "It's an honor. Princeton obviously recognizes his exceptional qualities and wants to give him additional opportunities. Not every student gets selected for early orientation programs." Janet finished processing the gift cards and handed Grandma Rose a receipt that probably had more zeros on it than she wanted to think about. "Sounds like you have quite the celebration planned," Janet said cheerfully. "The biggest party this town has seen in years," Grandma Rose replied, practically glowing with pride. 200 guests, live music, professional photographer. Nothing's too good for my Marcus. Nothing's too good for your Marcus, I thought bitterly. Including financial ruin, apparently. "Well, I should let you get going," I said, watching her tuck the gift cards into her purse like they were precious gems. "See you tomorrow night." "Yes, tomorrow night. I do hope you've been working on that speech we discussed. This is your chance to really contribute something meaningful to the family celebration." My speech. About Marcus's inspiring achievements. At a party funded by money she'd borrowed against her house. "Oh, I've been working on it," I said, and for the first time in this entire conversation, I wasn't lying. "I think it's going to be very memorable." As she walked away, her shoulders straight with pride and purpose, I realized I'd just made my decision. Tomorrow night's party was going to be memorable, all right. Just not in the way anyone expected. Friday morning arrived with a kind of crisp spring weather that seemed designed to mock the chaos brewing beneath the surface of our family. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly, messages from relatives arriving in town, Mom coordinating last-minute party details, and one final text from Marcus that made my blood run cold. Saw the news about Grandma's loan online. Banking records are public. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Don't hate me forever. Banking records are public. He'd known exactly how much money Grandma Rose was borrowing, and he'd left anyway. I was getting dressed for school when Mom knocked on my door, looking frazzled and exhausted. She'd been up until 2 a.m. helping Grandma Rose with final party preparations, and it showed. "Your grandmother wants you at the community center by 4 p.m. to help with setup," she said, holding a cup of coffee like it was a lifeline. "And she's very excited about your speech tonight. She keeps telling everyone how touching it's going to be." My speech. The one where I was supposed to praise Marcus's fake achievements in front of 200 people while our grandmother celebrated spending her life savings on a lie. "Mom, what if," I started, then stopped. I'd been on the verge of telling her the truth dozens of times over the past few days, but something always held me back. Maybe because I knew that once I said it out loud, there would be no taking it back. The explosion would happen whether I controlled it or not. "What if what, sweetheart? What if Marcus doesn't call during the party like Grandma Rose is expecting?" Mom's expression softened with something that might have been relief. "Honestly, I'm worried about the same thing. Your cousin has been acting so strange lately, and this whole Princeton situation feels off. But your grandmother is so happy, so proud. I don't have the heart to suggest that maybe something's wrong." After Mom left, I sat on my bed, staring at the speech I'd actually written, not the glowing tribute Grandma Rose was expecting, but the truth. All of it. Marcus's lies, his fake grades, his non-existent Princeton acceptance, his plan to disappear rather than face the consequences. 3 pages of cold, hard facts that would destroy everything. My hands were shaking as I folded the pages and slipped them into my bag. School was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything except the party looming ahead of me. Every class felt surreal, like I was watching my life through glass. During lunch, I found myself in the guidance counselor's office, though I couldn't remember walking there. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," Mrs. Henderson said, studying my face with concern. "Everything okay at home?" Mrs. Henderson. The same counselor I'd seen Marcus talking to frantically just a week ago. She probably knew more about his academic situation than anyone. "Can I ask you something hypothetical?" I heard myself say. "Of course. If someone was lying about their grades and college acceptances, and their family was about to spend a lot of money celebrating fake achievements, would it be wrong to expose the truth?" Mrs. Henderson leaned back in her chair, her expression growing serious. "That's quite a hypothetical. How much money are we talking about?" $25,000. Money they can't afford to lose. She was quiet for a long moment. "That's not just about hurt feelings, is it? That's about financial harm to people who trust this hypothetical person." "Yeah. It is." "Then I think you already know what the right thing to do is. The question is whether you're brave enough to do it." At 4 p.m., I walked into the community center and felt like I'd entered an alternate reality. The place had been transformed into something out of a magazine, elegant table settings, Princeton banners everywhere, a professional sound system, and flowers that probably cost more than my car. Grandma Rose stood in the center of it all, directing the setup with the precision of a military general. There you are, she called when she spotted me. Come help me arrange the photo display of Marcus's achievements. The photo display. A giant board covered with pictures of Marcus at fake debate tournaments, fake volunteer events, fake award ceremonies. All the lies, presented as family history for 200 guests to admire. This will be positioned right next to where you'll give your speech, Grandma Rose said, beaming with pride. Everyone will be able to see what an inspiration Marcus has been to you while you talk about his influence on your life. I stared at the display, my stomach churning. In just 3 hours, this room would be packed with relatives, family friends, and community members, all here to celebrate a grandson who didn't exist. But they were also here to celebrate a grandmother who'd sacrificed everything for what she thought was her family's greatest achievement. In my bag, the speech felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. Tonight, everyone would finally learn the truth about Marcus. The question was, would I be the one brave enough to tell them? By 6 p.m., the community center was filling up fast. I stood in the corner, watching relatives stream through the doors with wrapped gifts and bright smiles, all here to celebrate Marcus's incredible achievements. The irony was suffocating. Uncle Dave had driven 4 hours after taking unpaid time off work. Aunt Carol looked exhausted from her last-minute flight from Denver. Cousin Jenny had brought her new baby, excited to introduce the next generation to the family's first Ivy League graduate. And there was Grandma Rose, floating through the crowd like she was hosting a royal wedding. She wore her best dress, the navy blue one she'd been saving for special occasions, and every time someone congratulated her on Marcus's success, she practically glowed. I always knew that boy was destined for greatness, I heard her tell Mrs. Patterson from church. Some children are just born with that spark, you know. My phone had been silent all day. No word from Marcus, no last-minute confessions, no miraculous return to face the music. He was really going to let this happen. You ready for your big speech? Mom asked, appearing beside me with a nervous smile. Grandma Rose has been telling everyone about it. She's so proud that you wanted to honor your cousin this way. The speech. My stomach twisted as I touched the folded papers in my pocket. Actually, Mom, I need to tell you something. Ladies and gentlemen. Grandma Rose's voice boomed through the sound system, cutting me off. If everyone could take their seats, we're about to begin our celebration. Too late. The moment had passed, and now 200 people were settling into their chairs, all eyes turning toward the makeshift stage where a microphone waited for me. I'd like to start tonight by having Marcus's cousin share some words about what an inspiration he's been to our family, Grandma Rose announced, gesturing for me to come forward. She's prepared something very special for this occasion. The applause was deafening. Bright camera flashes went off as relatives pulled out their phones to record this touching family moment. I could see Aunt Carol dabbing at her eyes, already emotional about the tribute she thought she was about to hear. My legs felt like concrete as I walked toward the microphone, the folded speech burning in my pocket. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward for weeks. The choice between protecting Marcus's lies and protecting our grandmother's future. But as I reached for the microphone, something unexpected happened. The community center's front doors burst open, and Marcus stumbled through them. He looked terrible, clothes wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed and wild. The entire room turned to stare as he stood there swaying slightly, like he wasn't sure if he should run or collapse. Marcus. Grandma Rose shrieked with delight, abandoning the microphone to rush toward him. You made it. I knew Princeton would let you come back for your party. But something was wrong. Marcus wasn't smiling, wasn't moving to embrace her. He just stood there frozen, staring at the Princeton banners, the photo display of his fake achievements, the 200 expectant faces. I can't, he whispered, but the microphone picked it up, carrying his voice through the speakers. I can't do this anymore. The room went deadly quiet. Grandma Rose stopped halfway to him, confusion flickering across her face. What do you mean, sweetheart? You're here now, that's all that matters. Come, everyone's so excited to celebrate you. Marcus looked directly at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before, pure, desperate honesty. Tell them, he said simply. Please. Just tell them the truth. The silence in the community center stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. 200 faces stared between Marcus and me, confusion rippling through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. Grandma Rose stood frozen halfway between us, her face cycling through emotions I couldn't name. Tell them what, Marcus, she called out, her voice artificially bright. Tell them about your special Princeton program. About how proud we are. But Marcus was looking only at me, and I could see him crumbling in real time. His hands were shaking, his breathing shallow, and I realized he was having some kind of panic attack right there in front of everyone. The truth, he repeated, louder this time. About Princeton. About everything. Uncle Dave stood up from his table, concerned. Son, are you feeling all right? You look. I didn't get into Princeton, Marcus blurted out, his voice cracking. I didn't get into anywhere. I've been lying to everyone for months. The words hit the room like a bomb. Gasps echoed from different tables, someone dropped a glass, and I watched my aunt's face drain of all color. But Grandma Rose just stood there, shaking her head with that same bright smile. Don't be silly, sweetheart. You're just overwhelmed. First day jitters about starting college, that's perfectly normal. Grandma, stop. Marcus's voice was stronger now, desperate. There is no Princeton. There never was. My real GPA is 2.8. I might not even graduate high school. Everything you've been bragging about, all these achievements, he gestured wildly at the photo display. It's all fake. The room erupted. Relatives started talking over each other, voices rising in confusion and disbelief. I heard Aunt Carol say, what does he mean fake, and Uncle Dave's gruff, this has got to be some kind of joke. But my eyes were locked on Grandma Rose. She'd gone completely still, her face pale as paper, staring at Marcus like he was speaking a foreign language. The volunteer work at the children's hospital, she whispered. I went 3 times. Student body president. I lost the election to Sarah Chin. The scholarship interviews. Marcus's voice broke completely. There were no scholarship interviews. There were no acceptances. Grandma, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but none of it was real. That's when she turned to look at the party around her, the Princeton decorations, the expensive catering, the professional photographer who was still snapping pictures of this family meltdown. Her eyes landed on the gift table, piled high with presents from relatives who traveled hundreds of miles to celebrate fake achievements. The loan, she breathed, so quietly I almost missed it. The $25,000. Marcus flinched like she'd hit him. You weren't supposed to. I didn't know about the loan until it was too late. Too late. Her voice was getting stronger, sharper. You knew I was planning this party. You knew I was spending money we don't have. You let me borrow against my house for a lie. The family was catching on now. I could hear fragments of conversations. What loan? Did she say 25,000? Against her house. My mom was pushing through the crowd toward us, her face stricken. Mom, what loan? What is he talking about? But Grandma Rose wasn't listening to anyone anymore. She was staring at Marcus with an expression I'd never seen before, not disappointment, not anger, but something deeper. Betrayal. You let me make a fool of myself, she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. In front of everyone. 4 months. Marcus took a step toward her, tears streaming down his face. Grandma, please. Don't. She held up one shaking hand. Just, don't. That's when she looked at me, still standing frozen by the microphone with my speech clutched in my hand. Did you know? She asked quietly. The entire room was waiting for my answer. The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. 200 pairs of eyes were on me, waiting for my answer. Marcus looked terrified that I'd throw him under the bus completely. Mom looked confused and hurt. But Grandma Rose just looked, broken. Yes, I said simply. I knew. The admission rippled through the crowd, but I wasn't done. I stepped closer to the microphone, my speech still clutched in my hand. I found out a few weeks ago, and I've been carrying this secret ever since. Watching you plan this party, watching you take out that loan, watching Marcus get deeper and deeper into lies he couldn't escape from. I looked directly at my grandmother. And watching you treat me like I was worthless because I wasn't living up to achievements that didn't exist. Grandma Rose's face crumpled, but I kept going. Do you know what it's like to be called the dumb one your entire life? To have every accomplishment dismissed because it wasn't as impressive as Marcus's fake ones. I made honor roll 3 times this year, Grandma. I've been working part-time to save money for nursing school. I've actually been achieving things, real things, but none of that mattered because I wasn't your perfect golden boy. Marcus was openly sobbing now, but for once, I didn't care about his feelings. So yes, I knew the truth. And yes, I could have told you weeks ago and saved you from this financial disaster. But honestly, part of me wanted you to see who Marcus really was. Part of me wanted you to understand what it felt like to be disappointed by the person you believed in most. The silence was deafening. Then Grandma Rose spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. You're right. That stopped me cold. You're absolutely right, she continued, louder now. I did call you the dumb one. I did dismiss your achievements. I turned my grandson into a weapon against your self-esteem, and I'm ashamed of myself. She walked slowly toward the microphone, and I stepped aside. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the stand. Marcus, she said, looking directly at him. What you did was wrong. The lies, the deception, letting me risk my home for your fake achievements, that was wrong. But what I did was wrong too. I created the pressure that made you think lying was your only option. I made you feel like my love was conditional on your success. She turned to face the crowd. I owe my granddaughter an apology. A public one, in front of all of you who've heard me dismiss her accomplishments. She's been working harder than anyone in this family, and I was too blinded by my own expectations to see it. Marcus stepped forward hesitantly. Grandma, I'll pay back every penny of that loan. I'll get a job, You will, she said firmly. We both will. But first, you're going to finish high school properly. And then you're going to figure out who you actually are instead of who you thought I wanted you to be. She looked at me again, tears in her eyes. And I'm going to learn how to be a grandmother who celebrates real achievements instead of demanding impossible ones. The party was effectively over, but something better was beginning. As relatives started approaching to offer help with the loan payments, as Marcus and his parents began the difficult conversation about his actual future, as Mom hugged me and apologized for not standing up to Grandma Rose sooner, I realized something important. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy everything. Sometimes it just clears away the lies so something real can grow in their place. The golden child had fallen, but maybe that was exactly what our family needed.